Hi, I'm Paul Peterson.
And I'm Amanda Olberg. In this lecture, we consider the future of teacher policy and the reforms that seem required if school systems are to operate more effectively in the 21st century. Paul, how do you expect teacher compensation policy to evolve in the coming years?
Well, if education technology does not evolve and we continue to have as many education professionals for every 100 students as we have today, which is twice as many as we had 50 years ago, then the cost of education will continue to rise, just as it has in the past. Teacher salaries will have to increase in order to keep pace with salary gains in other sectors of society that are becoming steadily more productive.
But will the taxpayer be willing to pay higher taxes to finance ever-increasing teacher salaries?
We're beginning to see resistance to rising expenditures, both at the federal level and at the state level. And the rising cost of teacher pensions and health benefits is limiting what the taxpayer is willing to make available for the salaries of teachers. So I do expect that teacher salaries will rise and expenditures will rise, but the increments in teacher salaries are going to lag gains in salaries by other college graduates in the future, just as it has in the past.
And so what are the implications for teacher quality?
Well, if teacher compensation continues to fall further behind the levels of other professional employees, then the quality of the teaching force is at risk. Already we know that teachers are today educated in schools of education at less selective colleges and universities than they used to be. So we've seen a slip in teacher quality that could easily continue into the future as relative salaries decline.
So what should we do to make up for this decline in teacher quality? Should we have smaller classes?
That's the decision that we've made in the past 50 years. The pupil-teacher ratio has fallen from 24 to about 16. That's a major reduction in class size. But the cost of doing that has been quite substantial, 50% increase just for class reduction. And the long-term benefits for student achievement are yet to be documented. So it is unlikely the public is going to support higher taxes to pay for further class reduction, even though it is a very popular thing to do.
So how will teachers fight these trends?
Well, the teachers are not going to like the fact that their salaries are falling behind that of other professionals. And I think that we will continue to see adequacy lawsuits filed in the courts saying that more money needs to be allocated to the education sector. But the courts have begun to resist those lawsuits, and legislatures have not necessarily complied with court orders when the court is friendly to the teachers. I don't think that the legal strategy will be sufficient to alter the long-term trend that we've been talking about. We could also see an increase in teacher strikes, but if the money's not available to a local school board, either through more federal and state aid or higher local taxes, then strikes are unlikely to change the overall level of teacher compensation. It's noteworthy that the decline in teacher salaries relative to other professionals over the last 40 years has taken place despite the introduction of collective bargaining. Unions have won many benefits for teachers, such as tenure and protection against quick dismissal. But it has not been able to lift teacher salaries at a rate that keeps it at pace with other professionals, probably because of voter resistance. So unless the federal government steps in and helps out local districts with their pensions and their other education costs, the possibilities for teachers to fight back against these trends are fairly limited.
What then can be done to improve the quality of the teaching force?
Well, if you're not going to pay teachers more, how do you get better teachers? There's 7 possibilities out there. 1, modify the stringent education course requirements for teacher certification. That opens the doors to talented young people and mid-career professionals who are uninterested in pursuing an education major. So opening the door to education wider than it is today is step number 1. Step 2, eliminate or reduce the 15% pay increment paid to teachers with an MA degree. as there is no evidence that teacher performance is correlated with the receipt of that degree. That saves the school district money. 3, take that money and use it instead to reward teachers if they are of high quality, if they're effective teachers in the classroom. Pay them a lot more. Do your best to retain them within the workforce and encourage all teachers to reach higher levels of performance by paying them higher salaries if they succeed. The 4th step is to provide additional compensation to those teachers given challenging teaching assignments, such as those responsible for disadvantaged students or those teaching in special education. There's no reason to pay all teachers the same salary when some teachers have a much more demanding job. 5, provide additional compensation to the teachers in those fields such as math, science, and computer engineering, where outside jobs are well paid, and it's very difficult to keep highly talented people in these kinds of courses. 6, delay granting tenure to teachers for at least 5 years so that principals have plenty of time to see which teachers have proven classroom records. Tenure should not be given willy-nilly. It should be given only when you have identified a very strong teacher. 7, simplify the grievance procedure so that school districts can dismiss ineffective teachers in a timely fashion. Some people think that that action alone could have a very strong impact on the quality of the teaching force. Of course, we have to protect individual teachers from abuse, but we do not need the 2 to 3 year grievance procedure that's in place in so many parts of the country. So together, these steps could enhance the quality of the teaching force, even within existing budget constraints, or with modest increases in the cost of education that the taxpayer is willing to accept. So if we want to have teacher reform, better quality teachers, it's possible. But this is a very challenging agenda politically.